I wanted to defend the Detroit Red Wings today. Because a few days ago, there was a post made on the Grindline Podcast Twitter account. Once again, big shout out over to the folks on the Grindline Podcast. They're always doing some really good work. They replied to a tweet made by Devin L. from September 1st, asking, what does your Let's Go Red Wings opening night lineup look like? The Grindline folks then responded, saying that this was their lineup: DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, Tarasenko, Comfort, Kane, Carter Mazur, Andrew Kopp, Michael Rasmussen, Christian Fischer, Joe Veleno, Jonathan Berggren. Tyler Mott is the extra. Then on defense, Ben Sherratt, Moritz Seider, Simon Edvinsson, Eric Gustafsson, Olli Mata, Albert Johansson, Jeff Petrie as the extra. Finalizing things in net with Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon. Now, this is not a bold, extremely crazy take. I mean, you could say, oh, Carter Mazur making the team, interesting. Oh, Jonathan Berggren as a fourth-line guy, interesting. There are some names that you could toss in there and debate whether or not they're in the right spots or if they're going to be able to play in those spots for 82 games. Of course, guys are going to get injured, guys are going to move around. It's not going to be like that the entire season. This is just opening night, right? And what I wanted to do in this video was respond to a response, because the Grindline post was made on Twitter, and a quote tweet made by TickV1004 kind of went viral. Worst rebuild ever? Question mark. Of course, they're talking about the way the Red Wings team is constructed, the names that are there, and the way the team looks on paper. This tweet had 40,000 views and a bunch of replies, a bunch of likes, and a lot of people going out there and replying with a lot of agreement, actually. I was honestly kind of surprised seeing the amount of people that responded to this idea, saying that the Wings have gone through a bad rebuild, quote-unquote, and agreeing with it. So I wanted to respond to that idea in this video, because a lot of people in the replies on Twitter, they're just saying, oh, it's a mid-rebuild. Did they even really rebuild? Look at the age of the guys in the middle six. Look at how they've progressed. Are they really getting better, etc., etc.? And the easy answer to that question is yes, they're better. I mean, the Red Wings in 2019-20, when they were the worst team in the NHL, a lot worse than where they are right now. They have gotten better. Now, by how much, you could debate. That's up in the air. You could say that they maybe should have gotten better because it's been 4 years since they were last place in the NHL. Take a look at some of the other teams in the National Hockey League. The Colorado Avalanche were the worst team in the 2017 NHL season, and then they won the Cup just a few years later. Vancouver was second worst in that 2016-17 year. They made the second round twice, and were one game within making the third round twice. Detroit barely missed out on the 2024 Stanley Cup Playoffs. And while I will say that if you try to compare the paths and where these teams were, okay, Detroit went from last place then to where they are now versus some other teams that were last place even further than that and where they went in the future, you can say that the Wings are on a little bit more of a slower path, but you could also say that the Wings didn't really have much to work with in their bad seasons, because honestly, when you think about the guys that are there now, you think about the players that are making an impact and that grew in this system. I mean, all the draft busts have been kind of coming to bite the Red Wings in the behind. A lot of these guys are good drafted talent. I mean, Larkin, 2014. He's maybe the exception to the rule there. Moritz Seider, 2019. Lucas Raymond, 2020. Heck, you could even say Michael Rasmussen from 2017. Maybe there was a dud in Filip Zadina in 2018, which I think... okay, yeah, you can't really live that one down. That's difficult to really let go. But when you consider the other parts of the Wings and their lineup, I honestly do feel like there's a good amount of growth to be had here. It's just, if you wanted to attack this conversation from the perspective saying that the Wings could have been better, I won't necessarily disagree. Had the Red Wings just drafted a few more flashy, more NHL-ready guys in some of these recent drafts, who knows where they would have been? I mean, if you go to the 2022 NHL Entry Draft, the Red Wings drafted Marco Kasper instead of Pavel Mintyukov. In the year after, 2023, they drafted Nate Danielson instead of a really, really great prospect in Zach Benson. You can say some of the signings the Wings made have been very questionable. Do they need to sign Kopp and Comfer because those guys are pretty much the same player who got similar deals in separate off seasons? Jeff Petrie was an acquisition. They traded away Wallman and a sweetener attached to that, so there are some moves here that I think are certainly questionable, but I don't want to make it seem like the team isn't progressing forward. Therefore, this notion saying that the Wings have gone through potentially the worst rebuild ever, I think it's a little bit misguided and a little bit trolly, but I still do think that there are perspectives from this discussion that are worth acknowledging when you consider the fact that the Red Wings have been bad for a while, and they're only slowly starting to get back into playoff conversations nowadays. Heck, even the Montreal Canadiens, they had themselves a really strange sort of path in this. That's the other team that I like to cover here on this channel. They were last in the league recently, but guess what happened a year beforehand? They made the Stanley Cup Finals. So, while there are other teams that have gone through rebuilds and that have exhibited success and that have built themselves into being cup contenders like the Colorado Avalanche or maybe even the Vancouver Canucks, the Wings have gone down a little bit of a different path. They've been screwed over by some draft lottery luck. They weren't able to draft first in 2020, but it's okay because Lucas Raymond, you could say, is better than Alexis Lafreniere anyway. Some of the other guys they drafted have been taking a little bit longer to develop, but that's not necessarily a fault of their own. I think that's more so the Wings themselves and their development style. I'm looking at you, Simon Edvinsson, a guy drafted 2 years after Mo Seider, so Mo going through his development path. If you wanted to say that Edvinsson is on a similar path to Seider, just 2 years behind, then it becomes a lot easier to rationalize that idea. And then some of the other top prospects have been rotating around there as well. The top forwards, the goaltender Kosa, and a few extra guys here and there too. And I will say, even though a good chunk of the replies in this tweet and this Twitter thread are saying, yeah, the Red Wings have gone through a pretty bad rebuild, there are a bunch of people saying there are other teams that have gone through even worse rebuilds, like Ottawa, for example. That team seems to not be able to get out of the basement at all, let alone having top prospects and using their picks on guys that really should not have gone nearly as high as they did. Looking at you, Tyler Boucher. So, while the Red Wings may be in a pretty difficult spot when you consider other rebuilding teams that were up and coming around that same time frame, I think they're still doing all right. I don't think they've gone through a pretty bad rebuild. So, that's me going out there and defending the Detroit Red Wings in this video. I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Is this idea kind of crazy? Am I just responding to debate? Am I really just feeding into the trolls? Because of course they exist on the internet. They're always going to be there. And a lot of people, myself included, are exposed to these things every single day. So did I just take the bait, or is there reason to believe that the Wings rebuild has indeed been as bad as some people are led to believing here on social media? If there are any teams that you think have gone through worse rebuilds recently, let me know in the comment section below. Is the Ottawa Senators the main culprit in this situation? Some other teams around the NHL have been last place for a while. Some other teams cannot seem to get any better. It's kind of crazy how often the Columbus Blue Jackets finish down there in the standings. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Red Wings and their rebuild and whether or not you think it has been worthy enough of being considered good. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.